Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to teach you how to know what your values are and, more importantly, how to live by your values. And I think this is such an important topic because especially when you're a bit younger, it takes some time to know and to find out what do I stand for, what is it that I find important, and I think it has so much impact on your self-esteem. So there are three main reasons why it is so important to live by your values. And like I said, the first one has to do with your self-esteem. And we will go much deeper into it in the video, but it will be the base of how you move through life, in the way that you trust yourself, in the way that you can see your own value and that you act on it. So that will be number one. Reason number two is that you will build better relationships because other people will trust you more and you will trust yourself more. If you constantly make choices that are aligned with what you stand for and what you think is very important in life, people will know that, okay, I know your personality. Of course, we are flexible and we can change, but they know that you are reliable. They will know that you would never do certain things, and that really builds trust. And the same goes for you as well. So you will start building trust within yourself as well. And number three is you will feel so fulfilled. There is something about knowing what you want in life and knowing how to behave and how to act. And then once you do that, it just gives you such a fulfilling feeling because it feels aligned and you don't feel drained by saying that you're gonna do A and then in the end you start doing B. So it will help you to make the right choices that eventually will give you this feeling of being full. First, I do want to explain what does it mean to have high self-esteem, because it is such a term that sometimes to me feels superficial, like, oh, just work on your self-esteem. But I think this is something so deep within yourself, it's almost ungraspable, but you know that if you work on it and if you live from a place of knowing your value and of feeling so connected to who you are and what you're worth, then you will just flow through life differently. So the way I see it is that, imagine a forest. Let's say you're in the middle of a forest and you see all these trees everywhere. There are all these little paths that you can take. There are little plants, there are animals, and it's kind of a chaos. And that means that it makes it very difficult for you to choose what direction to go to. So if you have low self-esteem, you might look around in this forest and think, I don't know which way to go. There are so many options, so many places where you can go. How I visualize it is, if you have high self-esteem, it is as if all these trees, all these plants and things, they sort of get out of the way. And there's this path that lights up and you just know that you have to walk on that exact path. And I think most people, they always will take certain steps that will take them closer to their self-esteem and increasing their self-esteem. But when you have high self-esteem, you just know this is my path. And if circumstances are trying to pull you away from the path, then you don't get swayed so easily from left to right, because you just know, no, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm heading. And it is as if you're less distracted by what's happening around you. So that could also mean if certain things happen in your life, if you are in a dilemma, a choice that you have to make, or whether that's in your private life or in your professional life, it will be easier to make a choice from that path that was already made for you. And I hope that makes sense, because it's a bit of a metaphor, obviously, but I think that once you know this is who I am, then these circumstances, they don't get to you as much. And in this video, I'm gonna teach you how do you strengthen this path and how do you create some light that shines right on the exact steps that you have to take. So there will be two phases in this whole process. Number one is knowing your values. Number 2 is acting on it, but we will get into that. So first, of course, you need to know what it is that you want to fight for, what you stand for. I want you to know that these values can change and that that's totally normal. It's fine. You don't have to pick some values and then you can never get back from them. No, of course, it depends on what happens in your life. Because very often we form our values based on what we've been through. And honestly, very often it's because of what has hurt us a lot. So it's so important that you get a clear picture on, okay, what is it that I stand for? What has hurt me? What is something that even in public I would speak up about? What is something that I would teach my children? Let's say you do want to have children. What are the things that you want to teach them? If they would ask you, hey, how do I live a good life? What is important while I explore this planet? So those are questions that you can ask yourself. Okay, what is important? And something that can help is creating a list. Now, I do have to be honest. I've done this exercise about 3 or 4 times in my life, and I did them with a coach. And every time they ask me, okay, just get your first, let's say 3 to 4 core values in like some sort of list. And in the beginning, I thought, okay, I'm gonna look up all these values that exist to get some inspiration. What triggers my attention? What do I agree with? And it was so difficult to choose only 3 or 4. So I had made a list of about 10 values. And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm not saying that you cannot have all these values, because many of these things you will think that they are important. You might value your health as well as trust, as well as being playful, or I don't know, being adventurous, or making sure that things are that there's justice. There are so many things that we agree with, but when you find out what your core values are, it just makes it more difficult if you have a list of about 20 things that you find very important. And trust me, they will be in the back of your mind. You will behave in a way that is aligned with what you care about, but it's very helpful to choose about 3 to 4. So if you would have to choose 3 or 4 core values, what would they be? Another exercise that you can try, on the one hand, it sounds a little bit dark, but it does work. It does work. If you imagine your funeral, what would you like people to say about you? What would you like people to think about when they think of you? What are the things that you would feel good hearing from your best friends or your loved ones? What are the characteristics or the values or the things that you lived by? You don't even have to know the exact values, but just find out, what do you be remembered for? What are those things? And that's a very good way of finding out, okay, what do I find important? Another way that you can do it is think about what makes you so angry. What are the things that just make you feel powerless or just so full of, let's say, anger, because you feel like, no, that's just a boundary that's crossed. Those are different perspectives that you can take to find out what are the things that I want to fight for. Again, like I said, these things often form as a result of the experiences that we've had, and they can change. So instead of saying, I need to know my core values for the rest of my life, just say to yourself, what are my core values now in this phase of my life? Because that's different. There's less pressure and you can get back to them. And I feel like most of the time, once you find out what those are, they will be similar in the future. There might be an event that will, I don't know, shake them up a little bit, or there might be another value added. But yeah, just know that that's totally fine, and that it's more of an experiment to find out, okay, what are my core values now? So once you know what your core values are, here's the most important step, is act on it. So you can know what you stand for, but the only way how you're gonna build that trust and strengthen the self-esteem and better your relationships and feel that fulfillment is if you act on it. What does that mean? Number one, you have to stand firm in your values. So whenever something is happening, whenever you're in a situation and you're being challenged to stick to your values, you have to stick to it. You have to make the choices that align with what you're saying, that align with what you say that you stand for. So let's say justice is something that you find super important and you are at work. Something happens with a coworker and you see how they are being treated in a way that's just not right, then speak up. Speak up. That doesn't mean you have to pick a fight, but just if you let things slide, and of course there's a balance between trying to fix someone else's situation. I'm not saying that you have to solve their problem, but if this is something that you stand for so much and you just let it slide, you will probably feel bad when you get home. And now I'm taking an example of someone else, but of course, more importantly, it is in situations where you're the one that's going through something that's just not right. But I do think with justice especially, it's important that you speak up for people that might go through something that they can't handle. Well, I wouldn't say they can't handle it themselves, but more where your help would be appreciated. And that brings me to number 2, and that is specifically speaking up. Whatever your core value is, it doesn't matter whether that's health or trust or adventure, justice, it doesn't matter what it is. If you are in a situation where something happens and it doesn't sit right with you, speak up. If someone says something to you and it feels hurtful and you feel that something was touched within you that just doesn't feel good, speak up. Tell someone what you don't like. Tell them what your boundaries are. And even to yourself, you don't even always have to tell other people. Let's say something has happened, it has hurt you, but you don't want to look at it because it feels too vulnerable, it feels too uncomfortable. If you deny it towards yourself, you also get out of integrity. And that's it. Integrity is a core value in itself. And in fact, it's one of my core values. But in this whole process of knowing your values and living by them, integrity is a really big part. Because if you're out of integrity, if you don't act on what you say that you think is important, I think in psychology we call it cognitive dissonance. I'm not 100% sure. But what I'm saying is that once you say one thing and you do the other, there will be friction. There will be friction in your body, in your soul, in your spirit. And there's a price that comes with it. And it's not without reason that whenever someone is, let's say something happened and you felt like you had to tell someone and you didn't, you do feel the guilt. You do feel the shame. And that's not a nice place to be in. And I'm even saying it in a very soft, light way. It's terrible to feel that way. I have had experiences where I should have said something to someone. I should have spoken up. I should have said, I'm sorry. And it took me sometimes too long to get there and to tell them that I was sorry. But in the end, the moment I did, I felt so much better because I felt like, okay, now I act on it and I take responsibility for what I stand for. The other side of speaking up is know when to shut your mouth and when to become silent, when to not engage into something. So let's take gossip, for example. If people are gossiping and one of your core values is, I don't know, being friendly, being kind. If you engage in the gossip and you agree with the people just to make them feel good or to not make them feel uncomfortable, then you're also out of integrity. And trust me, it just doesn't feel good. So also know when to not say anything. The thing is, you teach yourself that you have your own back when you speak up when needed and when you don't speak up when it's not appropriate. And that is something that really, well, most of all, it does increase your self-worth, and it also really strengthens your relationship. Because how does it feel to have a friend that you don't trust? How does it feel to see that one of your best friends or a partner or another relationship is talking bad about you or bad about someone else behind their back? Of course you're gonna think, they probably talk about my back as well. Or if they said they were gonna do something and they don't, it doesn't feel safe. And I think that's the most important foundation for trust. It's when you trust someone, it feels safe. And if someone aligns their actions with their words, that's when you build trust. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to find out that some things you've done or said don't align with you anymore. But it's all about, okay, are you gonna take responsibility towards yourself, sometimes also towards other people, and put your ego aside, put your pride aside, and just live in integrity with who you are? That's what's important. Then another thing that you can do to act on your values is evaluate your surroundings. Evaluate your life and see what is in line with my values. So look at your daily actions, look at the people that you surround yourself with, but also your habits. Take those things seriously and sort of compare them. Let's say on the one hand you have a piece of paper with all your core values, and then on the other piece of paper you have all your habits, your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors. And this is going to take some shadow work as well. You have to be honest here. You might not always like what you're going to see there, but then put them together and see, okay, what is not aligned here, and take it out. And awareness is the first step in this whole process. Then the last point that I want to make in terms of acting on your values and how to do that is use your body as a compass. Something that comes to mind is that if you've ignored your intuition for a very long time, it can be quite difficult to hear your intuition and to listen to the whispers of your body and to know whenever something's not right. But I don't think that we ever lose the ability to trust whatever signals we're getting. So that means that if you reflect on it, what situations gave you that tight feeling in your stomach where you felt like, ooh, I don't think this is right? Or it could be a sensation in your heart, it could be feeling restless, whatever it is. Take some time to find out, okay, what are the signals? And listen to your body. It also applies to the things that you're most passionate about, right? So if there's something that you're talking about and you feel the energy coming up and you feel that you reach a certain state of flow, it's something that I experience whenever I'm making these videos. So it's funny that I'm saying it right now, but those are also signals that you're doing something that's right for you. You will feel when you get energy from something. You will feel when something is right for you, when you get excited about it. Those are signals that you can follow. I also really think there's so much value in having doubts. And now I'm not saying, of course, having doubts, depending on what it is, it's quite uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to have doubts about situations. However, I do think it's such a powerful invitation to find out, what is my body or intuition trying to tell me? And very often you can link it to your values. If you're in a situation where it's very tempting to make a certain decision, to do something, to start a project, to, I don't know, experience something that you kind of want to do, or maybe someone invited you to do something. Very often when we have doubts, when you look at your core values, you will see whether there's a mismatch. And it can also really help you in those moments to find out what it is. So I'm going to give you a more specific example. So I'm an entrepreneur, and I have been an entrepreneur for 4 years. Yeah, a little bit more than 4 years. And I've had situations where a company or someone has offered me a job. And even though it was so tempting to say yes, it paid really well, there were skills that I would develop, there was something inside of me that felt off. And one of my other core values is freedom. That's why I love being an entrepreneur. I love making my own decisions. I love being my own boss when it comes down to my agenda. I want to live a life where every day I decide what I want to do. So when these opportunities came my way, I remember thinking, should I do it? It's only a short-term project, or sometimes it was a long-term project, and something inside of me felt, I don't know. Then when I look at my core values and think about, does that align with true freedom? True freedom in the sense that I feel free? Because this is something you could have a great discussion about. Of course, let's say that you are in a situation where you do need the money. Of course, if you work, you might get some sort of freedom because you get financial stability. So I'm not saying it's all black and white. However, for me, freedom is much more mental and emotional than just that. And besides that, I just believe that if you do something that you really love, that's when you will feel more free. That doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. It can be that you have a job that is, let's say you love working at a supermarket. Let's just say you go to work to your job. It's a supermarket job. You might, I don't know, be a cashier, whatever it is. You have really nice colleagues and you don't make a lot of money, but you feel so good. You feel free because you can be yourself. Then that is worth so much more than having a terrible job, a corporate job that you might hate, where you don't feel free. And I still think you will attract more abundance and freedom and just great experiences if you're in this job at the supermarket rather than the other one. So anyways, I'm getting a bit off topic here, but once you do have to make certain decisions, look at your core values and what it means to you. Something else that I find, there's so many things coming up. Something else that I find very interesting and something that I want to warn people for is social media. And not only that, also people around us. There are so many distractions. There are so many theories on how things should be, on people stating certain truths. And in the end, I think only you know what is best for you. So you have to be careful to not just, let's say you're in a vulnerable position, you open your Instagram and you have this motivational speaker that says you should never do this, or whenever you're going through this situation, then do XYZ. Be very careful in those situations to not get swayed by something that is not meant for you, because you know best. I also think that these sources of information, it can be a great inspiration. So motivational speakers, or it doesn't even have to be that, it could be anyone. People can inspire us so much, and I think that's a really good thing. But before making very important decisions, take a look at your values and think, okay, does that suit me in this moment? Is that something that I want to do? And that will help you to have this clear path that I was saying in the forest, and just knowing what direction to go. Because that's the thing, values give direction. And we crave direction. There's so much information, there's so many things we could do, but if we go back to who we are and we go back to what we stand for, that is our direction. And then you will never be swayed by all this information and ideologies from other people. You just stick to your path. Something else about self-esteem, because I love this topic because it's so fluid. It's difficult to pinpoint what exactly it is. In my opinion and in my perspective, It is knowing your worth, recognizing your worth and acting on it. That is to me what self-esteem is. And again, things can happen in your life, but if you know what you're worth, then everything changes. You say no to things that are not meant for you. And that gives you a better life. Because if you keep saying yes to people that are treating you disrespectfully, or if you're saying yes to things that don't make you happy, it drains your energy, it drains your self-esteem. There is an exercise that I want to share with you. This is something that I do with my one-on-one clients, and I guarantee you something will come up. Something will, what's the word for it? I believe that it will touch something within you that you don't spend a lot of time with normally. So this is the exercise. I want you to find a picture of you as a child. This is not some random inner child work. I really want to go deep here. So if you have a picture of you when you're very young, you're this, I would say maybe between, 2 to 10 years old, pick something that feels good for you. I want you to look at this photo of yourself and really see the innocence of who you are, who you were then and who you still are. When you look at that photo of yourself, realize how pure you were, how you only had good intentions. And use that feeling, use that compassion that you have for yourself when you do see that picture to make decisions that are right for you and for that old version of yourself. Trust me, the first time I did this, I was in a situation where I didn't know what to do, and I felt hurt. I just didn't feel good. I felt betrayed. I felt sad, and it was difficult for me to make a decision. So what I did is I grabbed this old photo of myself and I saw her, and it just made me tear up so much. I cried so much because I felt like, she has no bad intentions and things happen in life. And this is, let me be clear, this is not to be a victim and think like, why is everything happening to me? Because things don't happen to you, they happen for you. Something we've heard before, but it's true. That doesn't mean that that little version of you doesn't deserve to be seen. Because that's what you're doing. If you get that picture, you look at her, you see or him, you see her innocence, you see how pure she is, you see how kind and playful and even curious she is. Trust me, it will touch something within you that makes you feel very motivated to make the right choices for her, for that little version of you. And that's something that if you do that, it will boost your self-esteem. You will feel like, yes, actually, she deserves the best. That little girl deserves the best, or that little boy deserves the best. And they are still within us. And also realize that as a child, you didn't have to do anything to be born. You were created because you are loved. You were designed because you are loved. And you are designed because you are here to share your gift, to share something that no one else can do, that no one else can share. And just for free, you were created and you were loved. And that is exactly what's the foundation of your self-esteem. You don't have to achieve anything. That's why I'm saying get back to what you stand for. Get back to what's important to you. And that will build your self-esteem. Then when we go to relationships with other people. So I mentioned that the second biggest reason why it's important to live by your values is because it does increase the quality of your relationships. And we know by now, at least maybe you've heard it, but there's a study where they've studied what makes people the happiest and makes them feel the most fulfilled. And I think I've shared that on another YouTube video, but it is relationships. So what would be better than to improve the relationship with yourself, to become a reliable person, and to then increase the relationship with other people as well? And you do that by living by your values and standing firm. And I think in today's world, we are very comfortable with being alone. There is a loneliness epidemic. We are living most of the time behind a screen. We kind of feel connected, but we don't. We feel connected because we are scrolling on social media. We see bits of other people's lives, but we don't feel that true connection with other people. And I also think that social anxiety has become something much more, it has become something much more present in today's society. And that could be a reason and a cause or a consequence of a lot of things. I do think that COVID had to do with it quite a lot. I think social media has to do with it because we were so used to staying at home, not going out as much. Also, I saw a TikTok from someone. It was an owner of some clubs in Amsterdam, and he asked the question like, hey, this is to the new generation. I genuinely want to know, what is it that makes you not want to go out anymore? Because he said, I have seen a drop in everything in nightlife. He said, I don't see as many people. I feel like younger people don't like going out anymore. What is it? And I was reading the comments, and in the comments, there were all these people saying, well, first of all, it's too expensive. A lot of people said. Something else people said was, we value health so much more. We don't like drinking. We want to go to bed early. We don't like going out. We don't like the vibe is also something that we saw. And another thing that I saw in the comments was that there's no real connection. So that's something that we're missing, especially in places like going out. Honestly, that's my opinion and my experience. I have gone partying a lot back in the day. But the only reason why, or actually let me phrase it this way, I didn't really feel connected to people. Because it's some sort of facade for most of us, because we crave connection. Then we get into this club where people are either drunk or not really looking for a genuine connection. And I think that those places, it's not the same as back in the day, but I think that if we do go out, and I'm not saying going to a club or anything, but going out in the world, going outside, talking to people on the street, it's much easier to do that when we have higher self-esteem. A lot of people also feel scared. They feel scared to speak to strangers. And I don't judge them. I get it, because it's vulnerable, because it's not as accepted anymore in today's world. However, every time, and I swear, every time I have spoken to a stranger, or I've been in a situation where all of a sudden you saw this human connection sort of come up again, I saw the twinkle in people's eyes because they love it. We love it. We are wired for connection, and we're so focused on our own lives and sometimes comparing ourselves to others or not feeling well that we don't connect to people anymore. But that doesn't mean that the desire is gone. So I think it's very valuable to make time to improve your self-esteem, not only to connect to strangers, obviously, but also if you feel assured in who you are and you feel certain that, okay, I know my worth, I know who I am, you have a different energy in your conversations with people. People can feel it. And I think a lot of us are very afraid to be truly seen. And that often has to do with self-esteem. So what happens? We avoid eye contact. We avoid deep conversations. We keep it to the surface. We avoid talking about ourselves and we just talk about either practical things or we talk about other people. All those things are often a result of low self-esteem. And that is not a problem because this is something you can work on by knowing your values. Because what is more powerful than sitting in front of someone that is so confident and okay with themselves? That doesn't mean that they are arrogant. That doesn't mean that they think they do everything right. It just means they know what they stand for. They know they make mistakes. And it is super magnetic when you talk to someone who knows who they are. On the other hand, if we don't feel that way, we might feel intimidated by someone like that. It might feel scary because we feel exposed. If you are someone that has done a lot of inner work and you feel comfortable with who you are and you've accepted who you are, you might have noticed that people are intimidated by you. And you don't even have to say anything. People can just feel it. And it's powerful. And it's not that we should misuse this quality, but it is something to be proud of. It is something that you can cherish. Like, okay, you've done the work. It's okay to be happy about that. In fact, there's nothing arrogant about being happy with who you are. Because if you're not happy with who you are, you're going to treat the world way worse than if you were to be happy with yourself. And in the end, like, you can try to tear other people down. Of course, I'm hoping that if you're watching this video and you're into this kind of stuff, that's never your intention. But sometimes subconsciously we can feel afraid of someone else's accomplishments or anything like that. But just make time to really start loving who you are and accepting that. And that's something that I can make another video of, on how to fully accept yourself. But I will, again, save that for another video. And then the last thing that I want to touch upon is what I said before in the 3 main reasons why it's important to do this, is that you will feel fulfilled. If you know your values, if you live by them, if you speak up, if you make the decisions that are aligned with what you care about, you will feel so fulfilled. And that just feels amazing. It feels so good. And most of the people that are here, they don't feel fulfilled. And we think that we need a specific purpose, and we think that we need to achieve certain things to feel fulfilled, but we don't. You know, the secret is that if you know your values and you live by them, you will feel fulfilled. How good is that? You don't even have to achieve something. You just have to know, act on it, and enjoy that feeling. So that was a lot of information. I really hope that you love this video. If you do need coaching or you do need guidance through this whole process, don't hesitate to send me an email or send me a message. I'm also on Instagram, I'm on TikTok. However, I do post mostly in Dutch on those platforms. So YouTube is my only channel where I post English content. But you can always email me at info@marilynwit.com. I will put it in the description below. And also, if there are other things that you would like to have a video on, or if you want to share what your values are, or perhaps how they've shaped you, or how your values have come to exist, please share it in the comments. I love reading those. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll have such a beautiful day, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.